Hello everyone, and thank you for joining us for Handmade in Britain, the online interactive virtual craft fair. We are being joined by designer jeweler maker Cari-Jane Hakes. She's going to be talking us through a demonstration about her silver imprinting techniques. As this is an interactive session, please feel free to ask any questions. Please take advantage to ask the artist any questions by typing in the chat box provided, which is on the bottom right, and we'll get to them during the show. So now I'm going to pass it over to Cari.
Hi there, good afternoon. Welcome to my studio workshop. First day of Handmade in Britain, so I'm really excited about that. And I'm really excited to be launching my new collection exclusively with Handmade in Britain, which is called Secret Garden. And I have used one of my favorite techniques in this collection. So here's one of the pieces. I'm going to go through all of these pieces in a moment after I've done the demonstration. But basically at the heart of all of these pieces are these hydrangea petals. And I've used real hydrangea petals to imprint into silver, which is one of my favorite techniques. And I thought, as part of this little demonstration, I'd show you how I do that. So I'm going to bring you over here. So I've moved my studio around a bit so you can all fit in. And so I've had to move my soldering over here because I don't want to move you around too much. But basically, so this silver imprinting technique, I just think is amazing. The first time I did it, and it worked, because sometimes it doesn't work. And I got this really good impression of, I think it was a leaf skeleton. I just thought, this is amazing, sign me up, I want to do this for the rest of my life. It's just an amazing thing that something as fragile as these hydrangea petals can imprint into something as solid as this sheet of silver. So this is how I get my silver from my bullion dealer. So it's not blue, it's just got this protective film on it, but it's really, really rigid. It's really strong because it's been through lots of processes to get milled down into this uniform sheet. So yeah, it seems like a kind of improbable thing that this would be able to take on something as delicate as this flower. So the way I like to think about, and the way I explain how the silver is at this moment, is that all the crystals have kind of got, as it goes through this working process, they all get kind of enmeshed into each other, and it just becomes this really strong structure. When you anneal it, which is when you apply heat, it sort of straightens everything out and everything becomes more ductile and malleable. So that's what I'm going to demonstrate today, and hopefully it works. So basically what I do is I get my hydrangea petals. So every single little flower in the collection that you see in the earrings, which I've got my prototype ones on today, and all of the pendants, every petal is different. So every little flower is different. So there's no two pendants that are the same. So I will basically get one of these little petals, snip it off, and then place it on the silver and cut out a little bit of silver that's about the right size of the petal. And then we're going to anneal. So I'm going to bring you a little bit closer.
Cari, sorry, we've got a quick question.
Yeah.
How thick is your sheet?
Okay, so that sheet is starting at 0.8 millimeters, but I will sometimes mill it down a little bit. So it may, most of the silver that I'm using is between 0.7 and 0.6. So it's still 0.5 is maybe a little bit too thin because you need a certain robustness, so that if pieces get cut, you don't want things to bend. So 0.6 to 0.7 is what I usually go to. So yeah, so this piece of silver that I've cut out, I've milled that down a little bit, and now I'm going to anneal this. This has been work hard, and this is not going to take the texture very well. So a top tip that I got from another jeweler is to get it to the right temperature is to put a little bit of magic marker on it like this, because when that magic marker disappears, I've got it at the right temperature. Because if you go too far and heat it up too much, then it becomes too brittle. And if you don't heat it up enough, then it's still too hard. So it's this kind of Goldilocks thing. You've got to get it just right. So this is a top tip, is put a little bit of magic marker on there. And then the other thing is to not have any direct light. So you need to be able to see when the metal gets up to temperature, and it just needs to be like glowing really faintly. So I'm going to do this. The cool thing about this is I can bring you right in. We can live dangerously, but also stay safe. Look, you're right in there now. So I've got my little torch today. So we're heating this up. Hopefully you can see that. It's going to go, right, magic marker's disappeared. There we go. So now I've got my reversible tweezers. These are great because they're insulated, so I'm not going to burn myself. And then get the silver, and I'm going to quench it in there. Right, now I'm going to bring you back over here. So now I've got the silver. So this has been softened by the heat. So it's now ready. You want to dry it actually. I'm just going to use my apron. Normally I would use a tissue. Okay, so that's nice and dry because you don't want anything with any dampness going through these steel rollers. So this is the magic bit of kit over here. This is my rolling mill. So now what I'm going to do is I've got the piece of silver. Hopefully that is in focus. I'm going to get the little flower. I'll show that to you. Here's the little flower. I'm going to pop that on there, and now I'm going to put this through the roller. I should hopefully get a really good impression as long as it doesn't slip. Oh yeah, that's good. Okay, so that's come out, and there we go. Now it's going to be quite hard to see. Here's one I did earlier, and if I hold it still, hopefully that will focus. And they sort of look like I think they always look a little bit like old-fashioned tin type photographs when they come through. So then, let me put you back up here. So once we've done that, I then take those, so there's the little flowers, so they're impressed into these bits of silver. And then I will cut them out on my bench. Should bring you over here. So my bench, and I won't go through all of that because that takes a really long time to cut them all out. Hang on, you're a bit far away. Let me bring you a bit closer. Oh, that's better. There we go. So then I spend a really nice time cutting them all out, making these little. Let's see, can you see that? All these little flower parts. Hang on. And then I start constructing and putting them together to make these little flowers that then go into making all the pendants and the earrings and the bracelets. So that is how that is done. And that will bring you over here. And if there's any questions about that process, I can answer them now, or I can take you through the collection.
I will just jump in. So we have another question asking, do you use dried petals or can fresh ones?
Yes, that is a really good point. So let me show you. I'll show you these. So these are from my neighbor Richard, who very kind. I saw these in his garden. I was like, oh my goodness, your hydrangea heads are looking amazing. Can I please have them? So yeah, these have dried out, and that's really important because if it's got any moisture, the rolling mill will just smush it into nothing. So it needs to be dry. So you can do that by putting something in a flower press with blotting paper or just in a really heavy book. That's really good. Or you can buy dried flowers. A lot of petals don't really work. The amazing thing about hydrangea petals is that they've got like a real structure to them. You know how sometimes you'll see them after the winter and all the rain, and they've skeletonized, so you can see that there is this fibrous structure to them, and that's what makes them so good at imprinting into the silver. So not everything, say a rose petal would leave an impression, but it's not as amazing as a hydrangea. So hydrangeas are the king for this process, really. So yeah, I hope that answered that question. Are there any more, or I'll pop you closer to the collection?
I think we would love to see your collection.
Okay, so I will start with, actually, I think what I'll do is I'm going to bring you on the move again, just for a little bit, and I'm going to pop you back up there. Hold on. Okay, so So these are some of the larger pieces, but then I've also done, it's quite hard for me to see actually. These are the earrings. So there's lots of different types of earrings. There's stud, a little bit of a dangle. I've done, there's better, I mean, it's better on the site, obviously, because I've done some really nice photographs of them. These are the bigger pieces here. And just to say about, I'm going to start with that larger piece. I'll bring you a bit closer again. So the foundation of pieces like these is this form that I start with. I have these trusty pebbles that I collect, and I use these pebbles as the former for the outside of the pendant, because there's something about these pebbles that I pick up. I'm attracted to their shape for some reason. That shape has evolved over millions of years, so it's sort of got more substance to it than just a shape that I can draw. I love the fact that that size just fits in your palm, so there's something quite ergonomic about that. So I will use that as the former for the outer wall. And then in this collection, it almost becomes like a little garden that these petals then sit in. So that's quite a statement piece. This has got a handmade chain, because it needed to be something a bit more robust than a normal chain, because for something as big as that, you don't really want it kind of hanging around here. So I've made this quite short. It sits just there, and keeps out the way. It's a good one for wearing in the studio actually, because it wouldn't get caught in any machinery. That's maybe a little bit over the top for wearing every day in my work environment. And then the other pieces I've gone down really small. I love these. So I've made, let me see if I hold it still. So these are like little, I've made the hydrangea flower really small, like a little hydrangea bud. And then these work, what I like, basically I like rings that stack. So all of these, I've made these so that you can, why wear one when you can wear two? So those stack together either with ones in the collection or with your own favorite ring. So this has got one single bloom, and then I have also done some with more blooms like this. So multiple blooms. So it's just taking that motif of the singular bud and then expanding it. Other pieces in the collection, I've done the little bud. I've also done as a charm on this bangle. Do you want to keep it? I wanted to keep them quite. Didn't want to have anything bigger than just the little bud. So that works well on there. And I also do that as a brace on a bracelet chain. So solid bangle or on a bracelet chain as a little charm. So that's the hydrangea bud. And then of course there are the hydrangea bud earrings. So they're really neat. That's under us. They're less than 1 centimetre in diameter. I've got the same as these ones. These are my test ones. I always like to test the earrings out to make sure that they're comfortable. Like these are like good everyday earrings. And then I've done pairs that are a little bit bigger for when we all get out and get to go places. We might want a little bit of, those are got a little bit of dangle to them. That's more of an open stud. These ones are layered up. Again, they're studs with no movement, obviously. These have a little bit of movement. And then I have got a variety of pendants. Again, just going through that process of the single bloom. This is more of a triple bloom composition. And then also to say that in each of these, it's all silver, but I've blackened the interior because putting the hydrangea blooms on a silver background, they just weren't reading as much. And I quite like the way that it's sort of symbolic of the hydrangea blooms. They have a dark interior, and you read those petals against this darkness. So I've replicated that in these pieces. So that's one of the slightly bigger pendants, but if I bring you a bit closer, I shall show you see if I can get this to work this time. Ah, that's better. So this is just a single bloom, and there's its little pebble former to make that outer. And then this one has 2 blooms, and that has a little pebble former that makes that outer wall there. And that is the collection. There's one piece in the auction, which is a slightly larger. Really had fun with this one. Just stuffed that full of little hydrangea petals. Really had loads of fun with that. So that's and all of them have got a texture on the back. A jeweler once told me that I shouldn't do this. I should keep the backs plain. That less is more. But I kind of thought less is a bore. And if there's another surface that can be textured, then why not? So this has got a lovely leaf texture. So it's just a secret. You only see it as the wearer. Nobody else sees it. Although if your pendant does turn around, at least there's something nice for people to look at. But yeah, more texture is always better in my book. And then that's the pebble that made that necklace, which is this is a nice little pebble. So yeah, thank
you, Cari.
The collection.
That is beautiful, beautiful. Just a quick question. Could you quickly guide us through the price ranges that we could expect?
Okay, so let's start with the little stud. The studs are so again, no two are the same. But I try and put them together so that they are similar. They're pretty much the same size, but yeah, they are just over £50 at 58. And then as they get more complicated, these are still under £100. And then the bracelet, the bangle is 125, I think, and the bracelet chain that comes in a bit cheaper. That's more, I think it's just over £60. And then the pendants range in price from over £50 to obviously this larger one that's in the auction is over £300, just as it reflects the amount of work, all these little blooms. And then these larger pieces, for example, this one, which is made up of leaves with a handmade chain, that's coming in at over £750. Again, a reflection of just the hours of work that go into creating these unique pieces. And those are one of a kind, really. So yeah, I hope but all the prices obviously up in my shop on Handmade in Britain.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for that demonstration. We have just 2 more questions, just really quick.
Okay.
One person was asking, how tight should the rolls be when you are creating?
Oh, okay. So yeah, when I do what I do is I will I'll pass the metal through, and then again it depends on what you're putting through the rollers, but I will just do like a kind of about that much. So how many degrees is that? That's probably about a 10-degree turn that I did. So from it going through with no marking to then putting the petal on, and then it's just like a 10-degree, but it's really, it's something that you get with experience. So something that is thinner would maybe need to if you do it too much, then it just crushes everything. If you do it too little, then you get no impression at all. So and then it depends on the material. Silver is hard, copper is a softer metal. So yeah, it's something you need to experiment with. I mean, I've done it over 1,000 times now, so I can pretty much get it to work maybe first time, second time. But yeah, I still have bits where I'm like, oh, that totally didn't work. So yeah, that's it.
Tricky Goldilocks effect, like you said. Just getting it right.
Get it just right.
Just right.
Yeah.
And just really one quick question. I think it's from a fellow artist. They're just asking what's the best way to photograph your products, because silver can reflect. So
yeah,
what's the best way would you suggest?
I find I'll use a light box for the sort of those white shots, but I never quite go for it completely all whited out. I'll often have a bit of a gradient there, but then I love daylight. I think that a lot of my photographs on Handmade in Britain, I'll just use like a lovely sunny day with, well, indirect light actually, not direct sunlight, because that can just bleach out all the detail. So I'll use north light or bounced light, so it's indirect. So so the silver can just has a beautiful tone to it, because it is really difficult to photograph.
Definitely. Well, thank you so much, Cari.
You're welcome.
And thank you everyone for joining us. Please do visit Cari-Jane Hakes' profile. I popped a link in the description, so if you click on there, you can go ahead to her shop where you can purchase her items that she's listed. Up next, we are being joined by another jeweler maker who is Barbara Spence, and please join us for that also. But like I said, please go ahead over to visit Cari-Jane Hakes' profile. She'll also be available on live chat, so if you want to ask her any additional questions, she'll be on hand to do so. All right, well, thank you everyone, and thank you, Cari-Jane, again.
Thank you.
Okay, bye.
Bye.